be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. When Judas had left them, Jesus said, "Now is the Son of Man glorified, and God is glorified in him. If God is glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself, and God will glorify him at once. My children, I will be with you only a little while longer. I give you a new commandment. Love one another. As I have loved you, so you also should love one another. This is how all will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. Alleluia, alleluia, alleluia.
Have you ever been to a conference and you have to wear your name tag so people know who you are? I don't have to do that anymore. You know, that name tag is very interesting. If we were at a Christian conference, our name tag would be different. Everybody would have the same name. What name would that be? Wrong. Love. Love. Because it's not only a verb, but it's also an adjective of a Christian. And I'm going to tell you, Tertullian in the year 300-ish was talking to some Romans, and the Romans said, "You know, you Christians, you guys love each other. You guys really stick out to us non-believers, or as we call them, pagans." So that love, which Jesus says, God is love. So we know that love is actually an adjective to us. And that's one of our identities as Christians, is love. And Benedict XVI said that love is commanded of us, because God loved us first, which makes sense. So to love is probably that word that we hear so much. So I'm going to give you some concrete definitions of love, and this way you can apply it to your life and make my life easier. So love, by definition, one of the definitions I've heard is doing what's best for the other, right? And so Gandhi had this really funny phrase. You probably have heard it before, but for those who haven't, I will tell you. He says, because you know he wasn't a Christian, "Your Christ, I like. Your Christians, I don't like." Because we're really bad at PRing ourselves as Christians at times. And so there are 4 types of love. One is storge, and storge love is the love that parents show a child. The second is philia, brotherly love, love for friends, family, cousins, so forth. Eros, the love of husband and wife, and also having a passion for a cause. Like for me, I'm very passionate about the pro-life cause. So that's my eros, is to support life. And then finally, as we all know, agape, the unconditional love, doing what's best for the other. What Jesus did for us on the cross is the classic example of agape love. So we know, without a doubt, no matter what we do, God loves us. We're always forgiven, no matter what we do if we ask for it. So we know that God is pure, unadulterated, merciful love, and that he can never change. That's part of his nature. It's like asking a dog to meow. It won't happen. God will always love us. You cannot ask him not to love you anymore. It's impossible, because it's against his nature. For us to to wear our name tag. Oh, love, you're a Christian. We have to change the way we think and the way we act. You've heard the expression tough love. That is probably the hardest thing as pastor to figure out what's the right thing to do regardless of public opinion or what people will think, right? I got to do what's right. You've done it with your children. You got to do what's right. God, for us, to purify us and to make us holy, sometimes he does what is right for us so that we will change our ways. And he allows certain things to happen. Why? Because God is all infinite wisdom, and he understands everyone's personality perfectly. And what's nice is he's the cheapest psychologist in the world. And he knows what we need, and especially if you ask him, which is very dangerous because your life will change, Jesus, what do I need to do to become a saint? And most of us, self included, are afraid to ask that question at times because it means a commitment. That means I actually have to be perfect in everything I do, which is impossible. So the pressure is incredible. But if I know that the basic premise of loving you and loving myself is doing what's best, I can live with that. And if I make mistakes, so be it. Joseph and Mary made a mistake. They left Jesus behind. So I figure if they can do a mistake like that, I'm okay. So how do I love God, neighbor, and self? God, if you love your neighbor, you're loving God. Jesus says that. Saul, why are you persecuting me? Whatever good we do, we know it's for Jesus. So that's an easy one. So how do you love yourself? I get that a lot. What does that really mean, Father? Love of self. Simple. Get yourself to heaven. Whatever it takes, whatever you're asked to do, whatever you have to learn, get yourself to heaven. That is the most loving thing you can do for yourself. Because if you love yourself that way, it will affect your neighbors and it will affect God. You are a saint in the making. How much time do you want to spend in purgatory? That's a good question. For me, I want to take the beeline. I just want to go through purgatory saying hello, bye. But the reality is, it might not happen that way. So in this life, I don't want to be in the place of purgation longer than I have to. So in this life, I strive to be holy. That's how I love myself, is my closer relationship with Jesus. That is the most loving thing I can do for myself, is to love Jesus unconditionally like he loved me. Unfortunately, due to original sin, I'm flawed. So I don't love myself as well as I should, because I freely choose to be lazy or unengaged. I choose that at times. And therefore, I'm not loving myself because I'm not learning more about Jesus and more about his teachings, which is him. Because the more I learn about what he teaches through our faith, I learn more about Jesus, because he is all truth. Every truth in the universe is founded on God establishing that. And the more I learn about that, the more I fall in love with this incredible lover, the one who loved me unconditionally through agape love. So when I choose to do what's best, my emotions are really sometimes out of the equation of how I love. Because you cannot always love through emotions. And for the young people out there, ask a married person who's been married for over 50 years. They will tell you there's a lot of emotions sometimes are out of the equation, and now it becomes a commitment. And there's nothing wrong with that, because Jesus did not feel loving on the cross. That was not a warm, fuzzy, emotional experience for Jesus. Post-resurrection, absolutely. And that's our future. But for me to get to heaven, so at the resurrection that I can be counted as one of the elect, I have to love God, you, and myself. And those loves are actions, those are adjectives, and those should be said of us. What a loving person he or she is. I could tell they are Christian. I could tell they are, well, the way they love each other. Now, one of the issues in the Catholic Church is there's humans involved. It's a minor detail. And because we're all flawed, we have a tendency not to forgive the flawedness of each other. We're not perfect. And it's funny, we think we're perfect and we see somebody act imperfectly. Oh, look at that person. Look what they did and look what they said. And of course, we have never said or done anything stupid in our lives. We're all guilty of it. And some people have done some seriously bad things. I'll grant you that. And that's just where you forgive somebody and you move on. But for you, when you hear, and the demons love to do this, they love to stir up the pot among Catholics, the rumor mill, and to cause division happens all the time. It's part of human nature. We have to be cognizant of the fact that everybody is flawed, no one's a perfect lover, and we have to focus on the goal, which is become a holy saint. And to realize that you can confront somebody saying, hey, I don't like what you're doing or what you're saying, and to not only pray for them, but to say, look, you can't be that way. That's not how Christians act. That's not part of our job description. We want to be like the way back in the 300s when they could say, oh, I could tell those are Christians by their love. Sometimes I think you could tell they are Christians by their division. They're bickering, they're fighting. No, erase that. No longer allowed. Today changes. We do what's best. We are a loving people. And we will always do what's best for ourselves and for our community. If we live that way, I guarantee you we'll be all in heaven loving each other and even, believe it or not, liking each other. That to me is the greatest gift of all. Knowing all these people who are on my list of unlikable will be my friends in heaven. We have an expression in Italian, mamma mia. So, can you wear that name tag?